So this is our freezing device for concrete, and it's called the instant hard freezer. So we all know that concrete is used everywhere, and we need to constantly use it for roads. However, liquid concrete usually takes a few days to dry, and it can become annoying when we cannot drive on certain roads because of the concrete drying. So we have invented a device that will instantly dry the concrete. This way, none of us will have to wait days until we can drive on certain roads. Since we are drying the liquid concrete, we are freezing the concrete, meaning it changes from liquid to solid. This is our first idea for the machine. Basically, it freezes the concrete by blowing cold air onto it. And this is what we think will happen to the particles. Before, the wet cement particles have medium kinetic energy and are more spaced apart. And then when the cement turns into a solid, it will have lower kinetic energy and the particles will be closer together. So the particles of the extra cold air that sprays out from our machine collide with the particles of the wet cement mixture. So particle A is the cold air, it collides with particle B, and they transfer kinetic energy. So now particle B, which is the concrete, becomes solid and it loses kinetic energy. And then we had this model, but it disappeared. So before, the speed of the particles was like faster, but then when it for the concrete, but then when it dried, the speed became slower, and the particles are closer together and have lower kinetic energy.
Okay, and this is a more detailed model of how the particles flow and collide with each other. So the freezing point of concrete is 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wet / liquid concrete is around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And the temperature of the cold air that is going to be applied is 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a way lower temperature than the freezing point of the concrete, so that it's guaranteed that the concrete will solidify. So how it works is that the cold air is going to be like transferred through into onto the concrete that is wrapped with the aluminum wrap, and then it makes contact with the concrete's energy, which has a higher kinetic energy than the cold air being inserted in onto the concrete. So then it transfers its kinetic energy onto the cold air particles, that then makes it lose kinetic energy and transfers kinetic energy onto the cold air. And this is also like another model. And before, it's the cold air is 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The wet concrete is 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So then after, the hard concrete would be around 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
And there's also a thermometer to measure that the cold
temperature.
air is being cold.
Yeah. And then these are the materials used for the machine. The tank and hose are made of aluminum or nickel steel that can hold cold air inside so that it won't like warm up. And then when it's blown in onto the concrete, there's this aluminum wrap over it so that it stays in a closed system, so that the cold air won't escape. How it works is that when you press a button, the cold air is like blasted out from the tank, and it travels through the tube onto the concrete. And it just goes inside the hole so that it can go directly onto the concrete.
So before, the wet concrete has more kinetic energy, higher temperature, the molecules are more spread apart, and it has medium speed. And then the cold air, how do I get rid of this? The cold air has lower, the cold air has lower temperature, not as much kinetic energy, we think, and the cold gas can be a gas such as helium. Yeah. No. Okay. Um, so there's some pros and cons of this device. The pros are that the concrete will quickly turn from wet concrete to solid concrete in just a few minutes, and it won't take much time, and roads won't have to be closed for too long. It will be fast and efficient, and roads will be easily fixed. But there are also some cons. For example, the freezing concrete is not safe and will have many disadvantages in the long run. Quickly freezing concrete will reduce the strength of concrete, and that will lead to many accidents. Even with using the device, the concrete may not be entirely sturdy, and that's not safe. This device will be hopefully easy to use and is similar to a pesticide sprayer, but we do not think it will be too cost effective. This device helps quicken the time it takes for concrete to dry, but by freezing concrete, it can become very dangerous for cars. Um, the concrete will weaken significantly, which will become unsafe.